The definition of an inverse, like mathematically, is let's just say f and g are inverses. Okay, these are both inverses of each other. If that is true, then if you do f of g of x, it's equal to x. Okay, that is the definition of inverse, and you absolutely need that to be able to find the derivative of an inverse. Okay, when in doubt, you should always go to this. This should be home base for these. If you forget the formula, you can always refigure it out by starting from this point right here. Okay, so make sure you write this down. Muy importante. It is also important to understand that f and g are inverses, so I could have also written this as g of f of x is also equal to x. Okay? If you do a composite with its inverse, it cancels it. They basically, what they are doing here, this is kind of awkward to write, but these are canceling each other out because they're inverses. Now, you have seen this before, believe it or not. In pre-calc, when you did like the sine of inverse sine of x or theta or whatever it was, you would cancel those out. I mean, you have to mind the domain as well for arc sine there, but you have seen this before. Another way of testing this out too is if you just, let's do it this way. Let's say f of x is equal to 2x, and the opposite of that would be divided by 2. Okay, I wouldn't write this down because this is very basic. But if you did f of g of x, that's going to be equal to 2 times g of x, because the x is right here. I just replaced the x with g of x. Hopefully you see that. Here, let me highlight it. Oops. So this right here is replaced with this. So that means this x has to be replaced with this. Hopefully you see the symmetry with that. Okay. If we keep going here, that means 2 times, well, g of x is equal to x over 2 here. And if you notice, it cancels out. Okay. Real easy definition of inverse. Okay. Make sure you understand that. Now we're going to actually go into the derivation of where the derivative of an inverse comes from. This is going to be insane. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the derivative of both sides. I guess I have to do all the sides here. Okay, what is the derivative of f of g of x? Actually, I should say, what rule can I use to figure out that derivative? Chain rule. It's a function inside of a function. It's not f times g of x, it's f of g of x. So chain rule states you do the derivative, well, the way I do it anyway, you do the derivative of the outside layer. That's what we're going to do the derivative of the outside layer. Don't touch the inside layer. It should just be the same. It matches. Then you multiply by the derivative of the next layer, which is just g prime of x. Remember, prime, it means derivative. You should remember that. Okay. What's the derivative of x? 1. Thank you. I'm going to ignore this side for right now. It doesn't really matter because you can just flip-flop the f's and the g's and you get the same thing. So there's no reason to worry about that thing on the far right. So I'm going to zoom in here so we can stress our focus right here. All right, now I want to find the derivative of an inverse. Okay, well, f and g are inverses of each other, so you can kind of pick and choose which one you want to find. But I either want to find g prime or f prime. Which one's easiest to find the way I set it up here? G prime. Okay, so you end up with finding the derivative right there. G prime of x is equal to 1 over f prime of g of x. Okay, this is one of the most misremembered, I should say, derivatives, because people, there's so much room for error. They mess up where the derivative goes. Is this a prime or is this a prime? Does this prime go there? I don't know. It gets all crazy and people forget what goes where. Is it f prime of g of x or g of f prime of x? I don't know. It's crazy. When in doubt, just work it out again. Okay? Never trust your memory, especially when you're nervous. Prove it to yourself if you need to really do that. Anyway, this is the main thing that you need. This is the moral of the story here. This is the equation that you're going to use to figure out the derivative of an inverse. And again, what if you wanted f prime of x? Then just switch the f and the g. It doesn't matter. Okay, they're inverses of each other. Sorry. Yes, and they will state that. Also, make sure it actually states that it's inverse. Sometimes people just see this and they think inverse. And it's going to happen. Even though I'm warning you right now, there's going to be test questions where you'll see that and you'll think inverse right away, when really it's just like a chain rule problem. It'll actually say F and G are inverses, or G is an inverse of F. Or sometimes it uses the very, very, very poor notation. Again, I don't know why mathematicians decided that this, sometimes they say this, F to the -1, even though it's not to the -1 power, but they say it's the inverse, and they'll say that. It just means G and F are inverses of each other. Okay, sometimes the to the -1 power will be on the G. Okay, it's really unfortunate because I don't get how there's a -1 up there with the power is an inverse, but you do have to be on the lookout for that. What a lot of people do right away is they switch the X's and the Y's and they try to solve for the Y. It's not going to happen on this one. You can imagine y to the 5th plus 2y. You cannot isolate a y on that, or you get y by itself. So highly advise not doing that. Okay. So I always say start at home base. If this gets too into the weeds, that's fine if you have some faster way of doing it. But I'm going to start from, again, home base for me, which is as soon as it says find the inverse of this, I'm going to say, here, let's do this black. So I'm going to say, well, f of g of x is equal to x. I just want that in my memory. We are looking for g prime of x. So I'm going to write g prime of x equals question mark. So I'm just kind of laying everything out here that's given. And g and f, this already says that g and f are inverses, so I don't need to write any of that. So we should be good to go here. Okay. So if you wanted to, you can use the formula. Again, I guess I just will use the formula since I just went over it. So it's going to be g prime of x is equal to 1 over f prime of g of x. Okay. This is where it's going to get a little crazy here. You need to find f prime and you need to plug in g of x to this. So let's actually do that right now. So we're going to say f prime of x is equal to, so do the derivative of this. I would write this down, by the way. Some people are just kind of sitting there. So it's going to be 5x to the 4th plus 2 minus 0. You don't really need to worry about the minus 0 thing. Okay. Oh, actually, I kind of wrote this incorrectly. Check this out. It should have been, we're not looking for g prime of x. We're looking for g prime of 2. That's embarrassing. Sorry about that. We're actually plugging in a value. Sometimes it's just find the straight up inverse, but this time it's actually find the inverse and plug in 2. All right. So we have f prime of x, but we need to find, hold on. F prime of g of x is going to be 5 times g to the 4th plus 2. And what this yellow is right here is this down here. Okay, another thing people forget to do is they forget to do the 1 over for the inverse, so make sure you do that as well. The problem is, what is g to begin with for me to be able to even put it in there? Does anyone see that? What that is? This right here. Anybody at home? This is what I was saying before, how it's not intuitive. Yes?
Remember the 2? Prime of 2?
But g is not equal to 2. G prime of 2 means whatever g is, find the derivative and then plug in 2. Okay. It's okay if no one gets it. It's not exactly.
The derivative of f?
Is g is equal to the derivative of f?
Yeah.
No. Why would you think that? I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to do that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with guesses, but don't just spitball, because then it's like, wait, would you have a little bit of logic behind it?
Like f prime of x equals 5x 4th, and then like the x and g is 12.
All right. To kind of show you this here, maybe this will help. I'm sorry. I'm getting really weedsy on this. I know you can just use the formula. We're looking for g prime of 2 on this. So what I'm going to do is write f prime of g of 2. So if you notice between the red and the orange here, between these two equations, all I did was replace the x with a 2, okay? Well, what is g of 2? Well, we know that f of g of 2 is equal to what? Based on the formulas we have. F of g of 2 is equal to what? What's that? No, because that's f prime. It is 2. If you remember the definition of inverse right here, if I put a 2 in there, it should be equal to 2. Everyone see that? Right here, I just put a 2 in for x here, so that's why that's equal to 2. So this means that f of something is equal to 2, okay? And this is where it gets a little confusing. I hate when AP does this because you have to do a guess and check on this. Look at what f of x is up at the very top. X to the 5th plus 2x minus 1. What x do I have to put in there to get a 2 to spit out? 1. AP does this sometimes. This will be a non-calculator problem, and you have to solve x to the 5th plus 2x minus 1 is equal to 2, and you have to solve for x there. Okay, I don't think there's an easy way to do it besides, did you just guess and check or did you do some, yeah. Usually when you do a guess and check on this, it's either gonna be 1, 0, or -1. They're very small numbers because otherwise it would take you a year and a half to guess that. Unless someone has some other fancy way of doing it. Okay, I'm gonna delete this on the bottom because I need the room. Again, I know I'm getting a little crazy here, I'm sorry. It'll make sense by the end. What this means right here, so it's f of something equals 2. F is equal to this, minus 1 is equal to 2. How would you solve this? Right, there's no like, besides guess and check. I mean, technically a human could answer any equation and solve it if they did guess and check, it just would take a year. But when this happens, try 1. If you do plug 1 in there, it's 1 to the 5th plus 2 minus 1 is equal to 2. So really, f of 1 is 2. This means that g of 2 is equal to what? 1. So now g of 2 is equal to 1. So now this right here, this formula, ends up being 1 over f prime of 1, which is what we're looking for. Well, f prime is right here. So all you have to do is plug a 1 in there and you get 7. So the final answer is just 1 over 7. Sometimes students forget the 1 over. So make sure you do that. They plug it in right away and they, oh, it's 7. But they forget the actual formula is 1 over that.